Great. So, just a brief on the description. This is not on the taxation. Taxation was a paper which we presented last year, and we have some wonderful results from there as well. We were able to basically acquire almost 80 crore of revenue leakages by that. This year, we are presenting a work on credit assessment and evaluation, where we have introduced large language models. Okay, before I dive ahead, right, let me double click on these two words, credit and evaluation. Now, we all understand what is credit. Borrowing money is essentially credit when you borrow it from a formal or an informal source. Formal sources do a very diversified, detailed evaluation. That's what we call as credit assessment. You also know that there are different scorings like CIBIL and multiple others, right? Now, if you see from the perspective of evaluations by the informal sources, you will see that hardly there is an evaluation, right? There are more data gathering, contact scraping, and all those things which are done for you. Now, as a government organization, we try to also see the statistics. Now, when we talk about credit assessment, then we relate it to NPAs, which is non-performing assets. And when you see the GNPA, we will be very happy to see that from 2018, when it was a double digit, the gross non-performing assets have reduced to single digit. So we should be very happy, right, that it has come down very well. But when you are a bank, financial institution, or you are a fintech, you'll be very happy that, okay, the NPS are reducing. That means you are less impacted. But when you see it from the government's perspective, we also try to see the other part. How much have we been able to move from an informal credit system to a formal credit system? How many people we have been able to move? What is the number there? What is the distribution there? So when we dive deeper, we realize that it is still double digit and it's whoopingly large, specifically the rural population and urban economically backward class. It's still primarily taking money from informal sources. So we started thinking that NPA story is going great, but what is the problem? Where is that problem, right? Now, I lead a very specialized data analytics unit as a chief data scientist for government of AP. Okay, so we realized that somewhere the credit assessment process is broken. Okay, now I'm going to talk more details. So we then started diving deeper that what is happening, why lot more people who should have ideally taken microcredit or would have taken loans from formal sources, why they are not taking. So we started diving deeper and we found out this bold statement which we are giving today. I'm going to back it up with some more data points. So let's go ahead. Okay, so before we go into the real journey, I would like to thank AIM, specifically the organizers of MLDS, for inviting us and accepting our research. Along with that, I would also like to thank Association of Data Scientists who have been behind vetting this research and ensuring that this research is valuable to you, the audience. Okay, we go ahead now into the sources. Now, what we started, as we started diving deeper, we saw that this is not an exhaustive list. There are more types of loans. We saw that a retail loan, a mortgage loan, a credit card loan, all of them are running on different algorithms. Now, essentially, it would get more interesting as we go ahead. What happens here is that a retail loan algorithm does not talk to a credit card loan algorithm or a credit card algorithm, assessment algorithm, where we have seen people bypassing the credit cards and getting rejected for a retail personal loan, and vice versa, people getting a retail loan but not getting a credit card. Now there are different limits, checks, algorithms which are running behind that. The next thing that we saw here is other interesting part. We started seeing that all these algorithms are actually running on different stacks. Now if you see over here, it is still ruled by a rule-based engine. Okay, so 33% of all the credit algorithms in the formal sector is essentially rule-based. Then we have the ML-based algorithms, which are at 27% today, statistical ones at 25%, and some people have been bold to take neural network-based algorithms, and they have taken the next step. So what we realized over here is that, okay, I have different algorithms run by different business units within the formal credit sector, and each of them essentially are running on different tech stack, okay, which are not talking to each other. We dived ahead and we started seeing what kind of data ideally goes into these algorithms. We realized a very interesting thing. None of the algorithms were taking holistically all the data. Next thing is, none of them were even taking complementary data. So when you are very rigid from the perspective that I have to stop NPA, you essentially lose out a lot of prospective customers who might change the behavior or who might get missed out because you are only following the digital trail. So we realized that a lot of this information, unfortunately, is not getting covered in a holistic way. So this led us to the next journey, that how can we then bring in a system to suggest by doing it that a single system can now understand all your credit assessment, I would say credit assessment algorithms. So a retail or a mortgage or a MSME loan can then go through via a single system. That system can actually choose which data to take based on your risk appetite, increase or lower down the risks involved, and essentially identify on whom we can take the bet, bringing in new customer segments, not boxing ourselves from the fact that only customers with pure digital trail would be pure digital trail with traditional boxes of data set, which I've shown before, should be the one who should be getting the credit. Okay, so with this, we did this set of things. So you have your gap and boundary analysis, which means that what is the gap? We already have spoken about it. We went into some prior work. What is the prior work which is already present? Because there is no point building the wheel or creating something which already exists. So let's see what are the prior works. And then we realized that prior work had gaps. So we essentially ensured that we build something of our own and then basically vet it against some established benchmarks and then validate the effectiveness. So this has been the journey. Okay, so we'll go ahead. Now, if you see the insights from prior research, you will clearly see that credit assessment actually plays a very vital role in distribution, wealth distribution, financial growth, and well-being of communities. So let's say these 5 people, if I keep them excluded of the credit, they will be forced to go to informal credit. They'll be exposed to money sharks. And they will in turn make their lives hell. So that's what we don't want, right? So the next part is that almost 60% of the businesses still opt for rule-based systems instead of untraditional models. That's already, I think I have already said before. Business often sacrifice performance to model interpretability. So as a business, I would say as a business leader who is leading that particular vertical, he is more risk averse or she is more risk averse because compliance is something which no one wants to basically meddle with, right? Because it's very costly. And also it impacts essentially your reputation. Next part is generalizability in credit assessment is not there, so that's why we have built it. And the 5th part is that successful attempts have been made to build specialized LLMs, and that gave us the motivation that yes, we can also build, and we are following the right path. So, so very grounded research. We are not into agents. We have also not used RAG. We have used something which we understood can add value to our use case. So two research statements: evaluating LLM's capability to perform end-to-end credit assessment tasks by leveraging their extensive pre-training on diverse. So essentially, let me sum it up. Can LLMs, with their pre-trained information, perform credit assessment? Number one, very simple. Number two, if I now take the next step, which is basically fine-tuning it with relevant data, will it perform better? Two simple statements we gave it to ourselves. Okay. The data that we have taken, again, if you see, there are boldly two groups, right? We have the credit evaluation task and credit evaluation category. So essentially, if you see over here, we have basically broken it down into two parts. One is those set of information, which includes digital trail and some non-traditional data points. And then the next part is three different kind of loan variants, right? And they are, if you see, they are all on different angles. A vehicle loan is different from a personal loan, and then an MSME loan is different from a retail loan, pure retail loan, right? So we have taken these three. And you can see, if you read our research paper, this is already there. I don't want to delve in these details because, data is the key to every research that you do. And this is where we have essentially ensured that we are doing a right mix. Okay, data preparation, this is important because we understood from the FINMA story that, okay, instruction fine-tuning really works when we work with domain-specific large language models. So this gave us a head start that we can go ahead and do that. Next thing was prompt development. So if you already by now know that if you have to talk with a large language model, it is via prompts. So we use two different styles of prompts. If you see over here, tabular and descriptive. Now, what does tabular means? Tabular means that set of things which we understand there is a pattern, yet in English language we cannot explain. Descriptive are those where we understand, yes, we can explain that part, which actually is also in form of tabular data, because most of the data is in SQL, right? I would say most of the data is structured, not SQL. And then the next part is you do have some unstructured data, but then you need to ensure that you're able to take that, explain it to the model like a human being talking to another human being in natural language. So then we standardize prompt templates, pretty obvious. I mean, this is something everybody does, which we have followed. I have described this part, the tabular and descriptive prompts. Other part is that when we are talking about whom to be given credit and whom we should not give credit, there is essentially always an imbalance, right? So we address that imbalance. Okay, so this is the core. We did not use any cloud. We built everything within our environment. So we used Llama 3 chat. Data curation, we talked about two data groups, credit evaluation tasks and credit evaluation categories. Next, our fine-tuning strategy, if you see, is parametric efficient fine-tuning, which essentially use LoRa, which is basically low-rank adoption. We all know that with ranking and matrix decomposition, you don't need to do the full fine-tuning. You can basically reduce down your cost and time using parametric efficient fine-tuning. Then data allocation has been 9:1. Training parameters, we know Llama 3 chat is 8,000 tokens. We reduce it and ensure that we follow something which is a normal, which is 4,000. Then if you see over here, from a hardware configuration, 100 GPUs, 4 in number. And we went with the Adam W, which is weight and decay based, right? Optimizer. We have used this, and with a warm-up phase of 1%. So this has been pretty our environment, very simple, right? And we have basically given it to you so that you can actually try this out. Okay, so benchmarking, again, model efficiency is our key aspect here. We have also done a research which are published on model fairness. We have used different metrics there, but this is one step behind that, where we have only used model efficiency as a parameter. We use F1 and MCC. Many of you might be knowing that F1 is one of the methodologies which says how well your classification engine is working. But let's say if you're in an imbalanced environment, you need to use Matthew correlation coefficient, which is MCC, to ensure that combining both of those, you now understand which model is performing better. And finally, error monitoring, we all do. So I'll go ahead. These are the results. The lower this part has been our model, ECAM, right? So if you see most of the parameters, we found out that supervised fine tuning has helped compared to the first four, which are generalized models. FINMA, which is trained on financial tasks but not specifically credit assessment. When we fine-tuned with credit assessment, you can see all these parameters on credit worthiness. You please combine the MCC and the essentially the F1 score together, and then you can see that we are leading. This place, anyway, we are leading when it comes to credit default and fraud. And in this scenario as well, if you see F1 score is higher, and in fact, our MCC is also higher here, right? So we have realized that on the efficiency of CET, we have done relevant, I would say decently well. In at least we did 3 iterations. First iteration did not go well. Went with the second iteration, third iteration are these results. We are trying to make it better. Okay. Next, if you see on the loan perspective, so this is on the credit evaluation categories. Here also significantly, the point that we wanted to make, can the first 4 models which are generalized, can they really do some kind of credit assessment generalized way? Yes, they can do. Next, we have one model which is essentially fine-tuned on financial tasks. Can it do? Yes, it could. But once you essentially train it on the right direction, which is of credit evaluation and assessment, it performs very well. So this gave us the real, I think the real memento that yes, LLMs can be used in this field, and it can essentially help organizations to bring together all their credit algorithms stack, and in fact it can help choose the right data which has to be used for its assessment purpose. References, please go through our research. You can see the references that we have used. And finally, I will keep 2 minutes for Q&A. So if you see these 3 things that we have found out, right? Okay. Number 1, as I said, right, our key point that can LLMs be beneficial in credit assessment? We checkbox tick. Next part was, can generalization across credit tasks be done with a supervised fine tuning or whatever methodology? Methodology is not important, but can we train an existing LLM and then essentially make it better for credit assessment tasks? We realize this is happening. And finally, what is the future impact? We can actually start involving it in credit assessment. Caveat, you need to ensure that you need to also take care of some guardrails. So in our subsequent research outcomes, we'll talk about evaluation to ensure profanity. We are making this phased to primarily the officers at this point of time. This is definitely something which we are telling the financial institutions to try and adopt and see whether they can be more inclusive. Okay, so that's it. You can reach out to me in that email, right? And I will get your queries and information. So thank you so much. I will pause here if you have any questions.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. One quick question is, why did you attempt to do the fine tuning, right, instead of RAG to kind of expose your data, right, to the LLM? Just wanted to understand.
Correct. So basically, when we talk about RAG, right? So RAG essentially, you do a similarity search, right? This is great when you are in search specific tasks. Unfortunately, we are not in the search specific task, right? We wanted to ensure that the LLM in its holisticness, right, be able to understand the subject matter and the data involved. So that's the reason. If you know that RAG, there is a specific set of use cases you need to do with RAG, and then there is a specific set of use cases why fine tuning is used. So our is a domain specific ask. So that's the reason we didn't use RAG. We went for first as a SFT, but saying that can RAG be used in future? Yes, but as a hybrid methodology.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to ask, how did you choose your model? Like you use Llama chat model. So what was the parameters?
Correct. Yeah. So when we started doing this research, right? So of course, DeepSeek and all these things were not there, right? Llama was one of the models in the open source space which was really doing well. Step back, we also have taken a couple of more open source models, but what we realized there is that when we pitted them against, we did not use any closed source. The reason being that we cannot project a closed source model, right? Because every financial institution and RBI basically directs that financial information should be within the country. So that's the reason what we clearly mentioned and did here is that we choose the open source models, pitted against them, and then we understood that Llama 3 is doing better. So this is something which we did pre. We did not include in the research, but this is pre part.
Just simple follow-up question. Are you going to explore something like RLHF or RLAIF instead of SFT, since DeepSeek was very successful with that?
We would definitely try to explore that. Yes.
One question. So
You have for credit evaluation, 4 by 4, 16 variables you have.
No, these are not variables, but these are boxes.
Okay. Then, so individual cases, certain variables may not be applicable. So in that case, how the model is a fixed one, then how you have handled what are the models, what are the variables or what are the things you want to stop contributing to the target thing, and what are the things to be more activated in predicting the target thing, whatever maybe your
Correct.
credit assessment.
Correct.
Because 16 by 16, all the things are may not be applicable to one particular case.
Correct.
Vary to very case to case.
Correct. Okay. So now I think this is a very, very pertinent question, and that's where I think if you remember when I went to that slide, I said that this is a holistic data set which we expect from an individual, right, to have as part of the data to primarily do the assessment. Now take a step back, as you rightly mentioned that some of the data basically some of the data boxes might not be available for an individual, and some of these data boxes I said that they are complementary as well. Now this is where the key part comes in, right? That you would probably write let's say a labeled algorithm using the prior generation gen 2 of AI, which is all the ML statistical models, to label and say that okay, this is the data set which maps with the basically this person's credit assessment journey. Here we have changed that. We are asking the LLM to decide from the bucket of data which is available, bucket of data which is relevant, bucket of data which is basically complementary. That is the change we have brought in.
Then LLM will decide the model performance and everything. LLM will converge the model by taking those things.
Not converge. So one part is that you are asking the LLM to understand which all data set is relevant to be processed for this particular individual, right? And then the second part is that you have ECAM, which already has the whole, I would say, in a limited space, the whole universe of data sets which is aligned to give the credit assessment, right? So that is where we are trying to bring and build that map, right? So LLM based intelligence, instead of basically a human being or a Gen 2 LLM, Gen 2 AI to decide which labeled data set to be taken, we are basically asking the LLM itself to decide which all data is relevant for this individual.
I do have one question.
Yes. So,
So, yeah. So basically, credit evaluation is something highly regulated, and regulators want that results should not be biased and also explainable. So, what were the regulatory hurdles, since it's LLMs are mainly black box and all? So, what are the regulatory hurdles that you faced?
So there are a lot of regulatory hurdles, right? I mean, before that, if you read our previous research paper, which is essentially on LLM fairness, you would realize that in the space of LLM fairness, in the space of credit assessment fairness, we have identified that the data which goes in primarily for building your existing rule-based engines or your existing, I would say, your ML systems, right? Those are itself biased, right? Now, as a government organization, our thought process is to give those guidelines, essentially saying that, okay, we are building assessment algorithms which is deciding credit for people, and these algorithms are already based on biased data. So if your data is biased in the beginning, your models are still biased. So you need to also change policies, regulations to ensure that that gets fitted, right? So it's a multi-pronged thing that we are trying to do. We are trying to ensure that the regulatory body itself understands a set of aspects, and in fact, the banks and financial institutions also understand the other aspect.
And how open were the regulators for these suggestions to adopt it? Like,
Okay, so I think that is a private discussion which I'll have with you.
okay, sure.
I have a question regarding on the business. So, like the problem
Okay,
statement.
this will be the last question. Sorry, we have to break for lunch.
So,
yeah.
you said that you wanted people to move from the informal sources to the formal sources of the loan, and people mostly belong to the tier 3 cities. So, how do you get the data for those people, and how? The second question is how you're planning to move this solution to those people so they move.
Okay, as a government organization, right, two things. Data is not a challenge for us. Number two, are we planning to move? We are not planning to move people. It is the financial institutions, both the which are basically run by the government and which are basically private organizations. It is the guidance to them that, okay, I mean, these are the the faulty paths, right? And this is the way you can actually take the right way ahead. And we are not giving credit.
No, that's what. But the end goal was to move people from the informal to the sources, formal sources of credit, right? So, since you're building a solution,
Correct.
it has to be useful to the people. So
Exactly.
there has to be some steps where it is being consumed, whether financial services to empower the people to get movement.
Correct.
So, steps on that?
Correct, yes. So that is a specific. So as a data science organization, our goal is to guide the policy wing, right? It is the policy wing which will take it to the next step. Saying that this is a well accepted one. Essentially, all these gaps, probably any private organization would not be able to find it because they don't have the data. And the second thing is that thinking it from the perspective of beyond profit, right? The moment you say NPS are doing well, you are very happy that, okay, my organization is safe. But then thinking about why there is no new customer segment which is getting included in my journey, that is something which most of the banks and financial institutions are not thinking. So it is our responsibility to basically, I would say, prick those points, right? And give a direction. And policy wing will definitely take it ahead in a large formal way.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Shubhradeep. Thank you.